who cares what Celine Dion thinks of the world, right? I mean, she's really good at singing in that earnest style. That's what she's famous for. That's what she's great at. Why not judge her on that alone? No need to get political. Let a singer be a singer. She's not particularly political as musicians go. I think that's what kicks in sometimes when a singer starts to lose their talent or an actor starts to lose their fame and they need to get attention in some way. Celine Dion isn't like that. There was this news story from a couple years ago that claimed she declined to perform at Donald Trump's inauguration, but that doesn't really say anything one way or another. For all we know, it could have been a scheduling conflict, or maybe the opposite of political. Maybe she didn't want to do anything either for or against Trump. I mean, what's not to like about Celine Dion? But let's also acknowledge that she's a little bit unusual. She started singing as a child prodigy, and when she was 12, she met her new manager, René Angeli, who was 38 years old at the time, so he was 26 years older than her. And when she was in her later teens, they started dating, and they got married a few years later. It's not really normal to marry who was your father figure. Nothing in her life has been normal. She lives in the Las Vegas bubble, and that's fine. She provides a lot of joy to a lot of people, and she's very well compensated for it. But you must admit, she leads an unusual life, always has, and her notions of mums and dads and husbands and wives and kids are a bit different from a normal person's. Again, no problem. I mean, it's called Holly Weird for a reason. But Celine Dion always had that slightly nerdy, friendly vibe, right? She gets into some product lines, businesses like celebrities do. She has a line of perfume. And now she's decided to get into children's clothing. And she has a few kids of her own now. I suppose I should tell you a little bit about that if you don't already know. Hey, let me read to you from this Globe and Mail article from 18 years ago. This is from the year 2000. Ready? The story is called On the Celine Dion Front, Things Get Ever Stranger. Here's the quote. We have a little baby in our belly and one at the lab, a beaming Miss Dion says in a coming television interview for the TVA network. Miss Dion, who became pregnant through in vitro fertilization earlier this year, says a second embryo has been placed in frozen storage in New York. She hopes one day to have the other egg implanted into her for a second pregnancy and has promised her mother that she will. Mom told me, you are going to go get him, right? And I told her, of course, Mom, I will go get him for sure. And she did indeed go to the freezer. Here, let me read a story from 2009, 9 years later. Celine Dion pregnant with embryo, frozen for 8 years is the headline. Celine Dion had her embryos frozen when she went through IVF while trying to conceive her first child, Renee Charles, who was born in January 2001. When she completed her performance run in Las Vegas in 2007, she consulted Dr. Rosenwax about trying again. She came back to have the embryos transferred back because she wanted to have another baby, he says. According to the fertility specialist, freezing an embryo for 8 years is not necessarily a problem. There have been embryos that have been frozen for more than 10 years and even more than 15 years that have successfully thawed and resulted in a pregnancy, says Dr. Rosenwax. Now, life is life, and I'm glad she has 3 kids. It turned out that she got twins from that other frozen embryo. And look, some people have trouble conceiving naturally. I don't begrudge anyone any use of technology if they're trying to have a baby. I will say that having an embryo frozen, an embryo is a tiny baby. It's not just a sperm or an egg. That Globe and Mail story said an egg frozen. It wasn't an egg. It was a teeny tiny baby already. And in her case, it was twins. I mean, here's a picture of those lovely twins. Right after they were born, you could say that they were already 10 years old, though, couldn't you? This picture's from December 2010. Again, it's wonderful. Life. I'm glad she's got 3 kids, and I bet she's a great mom. But there is something unusual, and I found it a bit uncomfortable, at least to me, about knowing you have a little teeny tiny baby and freezing that teeny tiny baby for years. And I know it's unborn and it's very, very small, but you heard her talk about those kids. Yeah, they're in the freezer. Yeah, Mom, I'll go back for them. And Actually, I'm glad 10 years later she did. That's an odd look into the future. It feels like a sci-fi future. I think Celine Dion is a nice lady, but you have to admit she has not had a normal relationship with her late husband or with her children. Would you grant me that? And that's fine, and I wouldn't talk about it, and it's none of my business, and it's personal and it's private, other than she has just come out with a kids' clothing line for little kids, in addition to her perfume line, and it's a bit weird. She's selling it as gender-neutral clothing for kids. She launched it with a big splash just a few days ago. There's the headline in one news report. Celine Dion has a new gender-neutral clothing line for kids as part of a growing trend in kids' clothes. Now, if you have kids, or if you had kids, you will know that gender is hardwired. It is biological. I mean, woke parents can give their little girls train sets and dump trucks to play with, and they can give their little boys dolls to play with, but you go to any birthday party for 3-year-olds and you will see what happens. The boys run around like maniacs, playing some rough game, usually involving pretending to shoot things or throw things, while the girls sit around in a circle and talk about dolls. I am not saying it's an iron law, but it is the norm. You can try to counter it, you can try to resist it, but it is deep and biological, like sex differences are. I'm sorry, there are only 2 sexes, folks. But Celine Dion says there are none. Now, that ain't right. But that's the theme of her clothes, gender neutrality, and skulls. Skulls, I'm not kidding. I think that's weird. Here's your kids' clothing line. It's called Celine Nu. You can see that right at the top. Just scroll through it. The clothes are as ugly as you'd think, and they just have lots of skulls, like human skulls. That's the main image. That's not normal. I mean, children are a fountain of life. They're growing, they're vivacious, they're lively, they're inspiring, they're energetic. It's the opposite of death. It's gross and unnatural to have children and dead men's skulls juxtaposed. That's weird. It's also weird compared to Celine Dion's store for grown-ups. Look at that store. That's a normal store. You've got women's clothes and men's clothes, but there's no skulls. This is her store. Feminine clothes, masculine clothes, pretty things. There's women's clothes marked for women, men's clothes marked for men. I wonder why she sells normal clothing to adults, mainly to women, of course, pretty clothes, things that would make you feel good, like a Celine Dion song makes you feel. But she sells ugly unisex clothes with skulls on it to children. That's weird. But then I watched her video launching her kids' clothing line. I'm just going to show it to you, okay? Watch this and listen to this. It's about 90 seconds long. Take a look.
It's okay, it's okay. I'm Celine Dion. Our children, they are not really our children, as we are all just links in a never-ending chain that is life. For us, they are everything. But in reality, we are only a fraction of their universe. We miss the past. They dream of tomorrow. We may thrust them forward into the future, but the course will always be theirs to choose. I can't believe they called security. I mean, oh, come on, I'm Celine Dion. I'm not spending the night in jail. Holy shit. Guys, relax, easy. I'm Celine Dion.
Yeah, girl, and I'm Beyonce.
Now, I think that was trying to be funny in a nerdy Celine Dion sort of way. I'm Celine Dion. I'm Celine Dion. That was funny enough. But you can't miss the sheer creepiness of her saying that our children are not ours. And by that, she really means your children are not yours. I won't talk about her and her own kids. I guess that's a private thing for her, even though she's certainly posed for enough magazines with them and told everyone the details. But she means your kids are not yours. If it wasn't clear enough, she was sneaking into a hospital nursery and degendering children, taking them out of their pretty kids' clothes for boys and for girls, and putting them in her weird black and white trans clothes. Is that weird? I think it's weird. I think it's a little bit political too. But if that's all there was, that wouldn't be much. I guess, I think her clothing line will fail. It feels like a bit of a stunt, maybe a trans activism gimmick. The moment she shuts down her pretty clothing line for grown-ups, with pink things and women's things, the moment she starts dressing in gender-neutral sacks herself, or even like Hillary Clinton in those big form-obscuring smocks, when she starts dressing like that, I'll believe that Celine Dion doesn't believe in boys' things and girls' things. She loves being girly and feminine. She's lying about what's cool. Skulls are not cool for beautiful children. It's going to flop commercially. But let me go one notch deeper, okay? Her clothing line, as you saw there, it's called Celine Dion, which is weird, but it's actually a partnership with an existing kids' clothing line called New. That's what it's called. And they've been around for a little while, and I thought the clothes were really ugly. And I thought the politics were dark. The whole thing was even in black and white, wasn't it? Now, they're activists, New, as much as clothiers. And so I went to their Instagram page. This is Celine Dion's partner company in her gender-neutral clothing line. And let me show you some of the pictures I just found poking around on their public Instagram page. You could find them yourself on Instagram pretty quickly. Now, some of these are gross. So if you don't want to see gross things and uncomfortable things, take a 2-minute break now, okay? Take a look at this one. What do you think of that? Take a look at that. What do you think of that? That's on a kids' clothing company Instagram page. The company's called New. They're making Celine Dion's transgender clothes for kids, but they're not your kids, you see. That was demonic, literally. And what about this one? A woman looking through the skull of a horse. And if you see at the top there, they call it skull inspiration. Sorry, that's really gross. I showed you the weirdness that Celine Dion's kids' clothes obsesses over death and skulls. Here's another new image. And in the comments, they call it skull inspiration, they say. I don't know if that's an adult or a teen. That's not a child's hand. But what's with the death and skulls? Here, look at the next one. This one is a child. This is a disturbing image, maybe the most disturbing of them all. Is that blood on her clothes? Why is she in a dirty alleyway with a bag over her head, holding onto a teddy bear like that? And look at what they call it. Look right at the top there. New inspiration. This is their inspiration. Now, I swear this next one is real. You're not going to believe me. Look at this next one. That's a young girl holding a children's book, wearing a goat's head mask, like the occult satanic deity Baphomet. That's Celine Dion's partner company. Here's one more image for you. Look at that. Death, not life. It's shocking because children are about life, well, not for this company. And what's that behind him? Is that spattered blood? I don't know. It's in black and white like everything they do. Who knows? All I know is that I wouldn't want my children anywhere within a mile of these people. Not wearing their clothes, not even going into their stores, not alone with them. They are freaks. What is going on here with lovely Celine Dion, who we all know? I am not indulging in some weird conspiracy theory. I am not connecting dots here. I simply went through the official Instagram page of her kids' clothing company with whom she has partnered in her weird project. She says your kids are not your kids. She says boys shouldn't be boys and girls shouldn't be girls. Maybe they should be demons or skeletons. This is bad. I think Celine Dion is a bit screwed up. Her life, while very glamorous, has always been lived in a gilded cage, wouldn't you say? Since she was a child, her manager came in and took over her life. He was 26 years older than her. She was just 12. And then he surely planned to become her husband and made it happen. And as if she even had a chance otherwise, she surely has not had a moment of real normal life since she was a kid herself. Her own experience of having children was the most antiseptic and dehumanized story I've ever heard. Now, I'm not condemning in vitro fertilization, and if it's tough to have a baby, do whatever it takes to get that baby. But you must agree with me that her comments about keeping kids in the freezer till it's convenient, that's odd. Now, I still like the sound of her voice. I still like her songs. I'm sure her concerts are great. And I'm sure there's not a lot of skulls and demons in them. But someone needs to get her off this bizarre project she's on. She obviously doesn't need the money. She's not doing it for that. So what exactly is she doing it for? And at whose advice here? And with her husband, Renee, gone, is there even anyone around her to tell her to stop? That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show, weekdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Every day I do a monologue, interview a guest, and read my fan mail and my hate mail. To subscribe, go to therebel.media/shows.